gotta go potty.
Hello and welcome back to the Darkling Chronicles. My name is Becky and I tell you real life ghost stories. I give you real life ghost tea from real life people. And if you're like me, you love listening to ghost stories while you're just chilling, doing a bit of work, doing a bit of housework, then you're in the right place. So make sure you hit the follow button to follow my page and support me. I'll be so grateful. Tonight's ghost stories are very creepy. And this first one comes from a lady called Denise, who's on my TikTok page. If you're on TikTok, head over and give me a follow at the Darkling Chronicles. I actually record the videos there and we have a good chat about the ghost stories in the comments. It's a beautiful little community that we've built and I love it. But this is tonight's ghost story. And it's called The Woman in the Mirror. Now there's two parts to this on my TikTok, but I'm going to tell you the complete story on here. So, Denise starts by saying, 3 summers ago, myself and my 2 daughters, Leela, who's 30, and Alana, who's 24, decided to spend a week in Cornwall with our little dog Barney. We all happened to have the same time off and thought, why not? And yes, we left the men at home, because honestly, it's more fun without them. We booked a lovely old fisherman's cottage just a stone's throw away from the beach. When we arrived, we unpacked and explored the house and it was honestly perfect. I gave the girls the larger bedroom, since they both flat out refused to sleep with me. Apparently, I snore a bit. So Barney and I took the back room. We had a great time, driving the coast, visiting little villages, walking, exploring. It was one of those rare, easy memory-making weeks. Until night 3. We'd gone to bed early, absolutely shattered from walking all day. At exactly 3:30 a.m, I woke to the most blood-curdling scream from Leela. I bolted upright and reached for Barney, but he wasn't in the room. My stomach dropped. I ran into the girls' room. Leela was screaming, pointing at the mirrored wardrobe opposite the bed. Alana was sitting upright beside her, completely frozen in fear. At first I thought it had just been a night terror or a bad dream. I was trying to make sense of it until Leela locked eyes with me and shouted, "Mum, we need to get out of here." Without even questioning it, we all ran downstairs and there was Barney, cowering by the front door. I made tea for everyone while we turned on every light in the house. Eventually, Leela calmed down enough to explain what had happened. She said Barney had come into the room and jumped up onto the bed, shaking and trying to press himself into her side. She was worried he might be unwell, so she turned on the lamp. That's when she looked up and saw in the mirror what she assumed was Alana sitting up next to her and looking straight at her. She turned to ask, "Did he wake you too?" But Alana was laying flat, fast asleep. When Leela turned back to the mirror, the reflection was still looking right at her. And then it smiled and tilted its head slowly to one side. That's when she screamed. We were all so shaken we stayed up until sunrise. We genuinely debated leaving, but in the daylight I somehow convinced them to stay. We swapped rooms, and from that night on, we slept with every single light on in the house. And me, I lay under the covers sweating, pretending to be brave for the next 3 nights. What a story that is. First of all, I'm so sad for Barney, and I do have to say Denise has told me that Barney is no longer with us anymore. Bless his little heart. So rest in peace, Barney. I know what it's like to lose a dog. They are just your absolute best friends. So my heart goes out to all 3 of you and the men who didn't go, who lost the dog, because Barney sounds like a little treat. But isn't it telling? Isn't it telling when the dog is shaking? If you go away and your dog is shaking somewhere and he's trying to press himself into you. Let this be a warning. You either need to get the hell up out of that house or turn on every light or say a prayer. We don't even know, but just do something. But animals always tell you first, don't they? They're the most telling sign. And I saw a clip recently that said if you're going to buy a house and do a house viewing, take your dog with you first, because if there's anything creepy in there, you'll tell by their reaction. And I thought, that's bloody brilliant. I'm actually going to do that. So, Cornwall is packed full of history. We know that it's haunted in most places because we hear stories all the time. Well, I do anyway. I'm sure you have as well. What's absolutely hilarious is Denise actually went back with her husband to a different place and something else happened there. But I will tell you about that story. Now, the fact that Denise actually took that bedroom for the next 3 nights shows so much bravery. I don't know what you were thinking, Denise, but, you know, fair play to you. You were all having such a lovely time and you obviously didn't want it to end, and you've had this week off together. So it's lovely in a way that you didn't let this sabotage that. But a smiling lady with a crooked neck staring at you in a mirror is not the one. So fair play to you. It must have been a really good holiday for you to want to stay even through that sheer terror. Just a massive thank you again to Denise for sharing that with me. I don't think her and her daughters talk about that event very often because her daughters don't like it. However, it did happen. It's a true story and it's very creepy. Now, this next story is from a chap called Darin, and he sent me a couple of brilliant stories. But this one had me on the edge of my seat. I didn't know where to put myself, and as I read it, I thought, oh my god, this is actually true. How on earth has this man experienced this? And just lives his life normally. It would just send me into some kind of like mind space where I'd be like, well, that's just happened. And weird things have happened to me, creepy things have happened to me, but not this creepy. Now, if you want to find this story on my TikTok, it's called The Man with the Wooden Leg. So go and have a little watch of that if you like. However, Darin starts by saying, "Hi, this happened to me around 1991. I was collecting a car and returning home. By the time I reached the outskirts of Tewkesbury, it was dark. It was around 10 p.m. I was driving along a quiet country lane when I got a puncture. I pulled over, got the spare tyre, jack and tools from the boot and started to change the rear wheel. The car was jacked up, the punctured tyre was off, and I was trying to get the replacement wheel into position when I heard a distant clip, clip, clip sound. I stopped for a moment, looked down the country lane, peering through the darkness, and saw a small, flickering light in the distance. The clip, clip, clip sound was getting louder. I started panicking now, more urgently trying to finish the wheel change. My hands were fumbling and I couldn't seem to get the wheel nuts to line up properly. I kept glancing toward the approaching light. Within 20 seconds, it had taken the shape of a man walking towards me. The clip, clip, clip was coming from a wooden leg. He was holding a wooden lamp with a candle flickering inside. He wore a long coat, something like you'd imagine from the 17th or 18th century, and a tricorn hat on his head. The sound of his step echoed louder and louder on the lane as he got closer. By now, I had just about tightened the last of the wheel nuts. The figure was only a few yards away. I could barely breathe, completely frozen with fear. Without taking my eyes off him, I fumbled for the rear door and grabbed the handle, the punctured tyre, jack and wheel brace and tossed them in the back seat. Just as I reached for the driver's door, the figure spoke in a gruff yet oddly pleasant voice. "Can I help ye?" That was enough for me. I yanked open the door, jumped in the car and floored it up the lane. Heart pounding, barely breathing. In the rearview mirror I saw the flickering lamp fading into the darkness. That was the scariest wheel change I've ever had, let me tell you. Wow, Darin sends through the scariest stories. That sounds like a clip from an actual horror film, doesn't it? This creepy figure, old 17th, 18th century, walking towards you with a wooden leg. down a scary country lane with a flickering lantern. The fact that that's real, it just blows my mind. But he's told me a few stories now, and his daughter can back up a lot of his stories, so she wasn't here on this instance. However, I believe him. Have you ever had a similar story to this? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to discuss this with you. But listen, this spirit sounded really nice because he said, "Can I help you?" And I know that that is not normal to hear. So Darin's behaviour does seem very rational in the sense that you just want to get out of there. That's totally fine. That's your right to do that. I think I probably would have done that as well. I probably would have driven off without the wheel on the actual wheel space, to be honest with you. I would have just drove off with that metal circle bit in the middle and just let my car scratch on the floor, because that would have terrified the life out of me. So fair play to Darin for actually finishing it. Whether his hands were fumbling or not, he did the job. I wonder if anyone down that road has ever experienced anything like this again. It would be very interesting. Now, Darin said this was like years ago. I think he said about 20 odd years ago. It might have been 30. So he can't remember exactly the country lane. But if you know the one that he might be talking about, then let me know, because we need to maybe send someone there to have a little look at that. That sounds freaky. Now, let's finish with a ghost story from someone who I had to keep anonymous, but who I speak to quite a lot and who is a very loyal, lovely person who follows my TikTok page. And she says, "I was working in the offices on the second floor of the hospital I work in. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening, and I was carrying all the black bags I had collected from emptying the bins. It was still daylight as it was September time. As I was coming through one of the doors that divides the corridors, I looked to the end of the corridor, which is about 25 to 30 metres long. There was an older lady in a cream blouse and a grey skirt. She was standing side on to me, so I couldn't see her face properly. I called to her to see if she was okay and asked if she needed help, as no one was supposed to be up there at that time. I also thought she might have been a lost patient, as we are a rehabilitation hospital, and it is mainly the older generation we have, 60 plus. She just walked out of my vision and around the corner, so I put the black bags down to go and check. But when I got around the corner, where the small kitchen and office are, it was completely empty. I was on my own. I grabbed the bags and went downstairs a little shaken. Another member of staff asked if I was okay, and I said yes and explained what had happened. She then said, "Did this lady have a cream blouse and a grey skirt on?" I said yes, now even more taken aback. She said, "I saw the same thing about a month ago." She continued, "I've been told it's the old matron and she's going to her old living quarters where the kitchen and office are. I've never seen her again, but I have seen other strange figures and shadows, and the activity usually happens when we've got a person close to passing away." I have heard that. That is a really cool story. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I know I can't say your name, but you know who you are if you're listening. This story is brilliant, and it just goes to show, doesn't it, that some spirits just stay here. Was this a stone tape theory where it's just her memory of her life or her job replaying? Or is she stuck here and that's what she's doing? She's still working as if she's here, alive. It does fascinate me that most spirits don't know that they've died. And it just asks the question of, how do the ones that know they've died and leave? Is it faith that makes them go? Is it people with no faith that maybe stick around here because they don't want the judgment of going up and seeing what kind of is ahead of them, if there is a God? If it's very scary, isn't it? Like, it just makes me question as to why there are spirits that are here, or why their memory plays. It's very interesting to me. Like, why is this old matron still there? And why would you be working if you're a ghost? I mean, when we die, we should be released from the bonds of all of the horrible hours of working, unless you love your job, which I do, so I can't really say that. But there's lots of people who don't know their job in this world, you know, and you would have thought death would be an escape from all of that. So I don't know whether to feel sorry for this matron or not really, or maybe she loved it so much she didn't want to leave and she's just doing her thing in spirit. But yeah, brilliant story. And it's really good when people, more than one person, can kind of corroborate the story, because it just gives it so much more credibility. But that's all I have time for on this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you do have a ghost story, make sure you send it to me, the Darkling Chronicles 25@gmail.com. You can find me on TikTok. You can send me a message from my profile as well if you want to. I would love to hear your ghost stories. I'd love to hear any freaky stories that you cannot explain. Maybe it was a dream or a visitation or something happened. Maybe it wasn't scary, but it was lovely. I'm open to all kinds of stories. I will catch you in the next episode where I give you some more ghost tea. But until then, take care of yourself.